Charlie Munger was one of the most successful investors in history and an outstanding thinker in multiple areas of knowledge. Despite his low profile compared to his partner Warren Buffett, Charlie is a hero to many entrepreneurs, investors, and students, including ourselves. Therefore, we couldn't overlook his latest interview, granted to Becky Quick for CNBC, to help you grasp the details of his education, the evolution of his investment style, his insights into the current economic and political landscape of the United States, and the advice he gave, at the end of his days, to live a fulfilling life. Charlie Munger was born in 1924 in Omaha, Nebraska, and at the age of just 5, the country would begin to experience its most severe economic crisis, the Great Depression. The difficulties that his family went through during this time deeply affected Charlie, with one of the most memorable cases being the death of one of his cousins due to the family's inability to afford medical treatment.
A little boy of his cousin who's of the same age is dying next door, and it takes forever and costs a fortune, and there's no money to pay the doctors, the hospitals, anything. That's a serious growing up experience.
This early life event would hold great significance because it taught him about the importance of resilience and marked the beginning of a new era for the world, where humanity would witness unprecedented development in its history. From a very young age, Charlie learned that if he wanted to succeed in life, he had to study the great models of each science and discipline, largely inspired by his personal hero Benjamin Franklin, who excelled in sciences, politics, writing, and, of course, as one of the founding fathers of the United States. This worldview allowed Charlie to become an extremely broad thinker, having at his disposal in his mental toolbox all kinds of knowledge in law, history, philosophy, economics, mathematics, statistics, and sciences. Charlie has always emphasized the importance of statistics in understanding the world, stating that it should significantly influence people's behavior, as individuals often exhibit significant biases regarding probabilities. Charlie even mentions that as a child, he always used his knowledge of statistics to make money from other kids, engaging them in bets where he knew the odds were in his favor. This is a behavior he continued throughout his life, focusing on areas where his odds were the best.
Assessing the odds the way it was easy to assess the odds. If you learned it, you paid attention when the teacher was teaching you permutations and combinations your second year in high school. The minute they taught me those things, I looked at them. And the math teacher who was teaching me was a dumb cough. And of course, he didn't have any idea how they were important and why. He just taught them as one more thing he had to teach to get through the textbook. And I immediately realized that these things were terribly important. It would do wonders for me if I mastered them.
Charlie began his college life studying mathematics at the University of Michigan, but he interrupted his studies to serve in the military during World War II, where he joined the Army Air Corps as a second lieutenant. During his military service, he was ordered to study meteorology at Caltech to support the logistics involved in the takeoff of warplanes and their flight routes. Later, he studied law at Harvard, but he is recognized by most people for his investment skills and knowledge of economics, showcasing his versatility and the importance he placed on learning the fundamental mental models of the world's sciences and disciplines. When Becky Quick asks Charlie whether it is now more challenging to invest than before, Charlie provides a guide that formed the basis of his investment philosophy, which, like his partner Warren Buffett, began with the ideas of Benjamin Graham. Benjamin Graham developed an investment method where he sought out excessively undervalued companies that could be purchased with low risk. After a couple of years, he would sell them when their stock prices revealed the true value of the companies. Thanks to this method and its popularization in the world of investments, more and more people started entering the markets, seeking these great opportunities and quickly exhausting them for everyone. This is why Charlie considers investing in the present, where there are more professionals seeking significant opportunities, much more challenging than before.
What Ben Graham did that was so interesting is that he taught that you should find a few good things and stay with them for a very long time. But a long time to him was a few years. It wasn't a few decades. And he did that for like 40 or 50 years in a little investment partnership with incentives and so on. And his investors, who are by and large not very rich, did very well with him. After he got his share, they got a good cut that was higher than what other people got after fees. And so he delivered a valuable product. And he taught you got into things, it could be a lousy business, but if they were cheap enough, they're still all right if they had enough assets per share. So you're getting at least twice as many assets as you were paying for. And he just floated around for the best available stuff among companies, good and bad. That was his system. And he had worked for 50 years. His clients had good returns. Well, after he became so famous, partly with the help of Warren Buffett and Warren Buffett's success, everybody tried to do the same thing. And of course, as everybody crowded in, trying to be a little Ben Graham, it got more and more competitive. And that's what's happened now. And the low-hanging fruit that Ben Graham had a lot of because of the Great Depression has gone away.
Although Charlie was strongly influenced by Graham, he soon realized that this method, in its purest form, would not serve in the long term or for scaling. Firstly, because these obvious opportunities were beginning to diminish as this form of investment became popular. Secondly, because most companies meeting these criteria were of very poor quality. This not only posed a long-term risk of the company's nature deteriorating its value, but also because it did not allow for the absorption of large amounts of capital. If a company is only worth a couple of $1 million in the market, then a company managing billions of dollars will not derive significant benefits from such opportunities. This is where Charlie changed his investment philosophy, shifting from buying mediocre companies at low prices to great companies at fair prices. This change in his philosophy, which influenced Warren Buffett's investment style, earned him the nickname the architect of Berkshire Hathaway, the company he led with Warren Buffett. Charlie has also been a strong advocate for not diversifying if one wants to avoid mediocre results, and he has argued that in both investments and life, one should bet heavily when good opportunities arise. Charlie uses a basketball analogy to illustrate this, mentioning how one of the greatest coaches in the history of the sport discovered that he could have a winning team by focusing on a select group of players, rather than trying to develop the talent of every team member.
Trick that Berkshire shows is the power of what I call the Wooden effect. And Wooden was the most famous basketball coach of the whole era. And you figure out what the hell he really did, which of course, somebody like Warren and me, we just automatically do it. He concentrated about 90% of the playing time in 7 players. And everybody else was just a sparring partner for the people. And that turned out a great system for running at basketball, because you identified your best player and concentrated so much of the playing time on your best player. And more playing creates better. You learn by playing in a way you can never learn just by shooting practice baskets. And so he concentrated all his playing time on his best players. Simple idea. That's what Berkshire did. Of course, it worked better.
Is the American dream dead? According to Charlie, the American dream is still alive, but not for everyone. Many individuals can achieve much more in a shorter time than what the average person could attain with many years of effort a few decades ago, especially in the technology sector, where Charlie sees people progressing rapidly and amassing fortunes that would have been completely out of reach in the past. Charlie believes that the quality of life has changed radically, and the country is experiencing great prosperity compared to when he grew up. However, this doesn't mean the country is without problems. When asked about the likely candidates for the presidency, Charlie is clear: probably neither of them is prepared for the challenging role of the U.S. presidency. One of the most concerning issues for Charlie is the fiscal deficit. He points out that politicians have adopted the use of economic emergency acts, traditionally reserved for times of war, to address even the slightest economic crisis. This has led the country to spend far more than necessary to prevent its population from facing difficulties, but has done so at the expense of accumulating a massive debt.
Modern monetary theory was a level of indebtedness, which in the past would have happened only during a war, can now be routinely created to avoid any kind of unpleasantness from some families getting squeezed by hardship at the very bottom of the economic order. I'm not sure the whole damn system works when some families aren't being squeezed at the bottom of the economic order. That may be our path to civilization, and maybe the only one we've got. In that case, we just have to be financially responsible whether it feels good or not, even whether it works well or not on a temporary basis.
This is closely tied to one of Charlie's main areas of interest, incentives. Charlie suggests that if you want to understand why people act the way they do, you should look at their incentives. In the case of government and the implementation of public policies, incentives are geared toward delivering short-term results, where government spending proves very effective. However, this comes at the cost of long-term consequences. When Charlie was born, the life expectancy in the United States was only 57 years. However, Charlie was just a couple of weeks away from reaching the age of 100. Here are some lessons that can be valuable for anyone aiming for a long and prosperous life. First and foremost, invert, always invert. Charlie Munger's life philosophy involves looking at problems in reverse. Therefore, to live a prosperous life, Charlie recommends avoiding anything that can make us miserable, especially avoiding foolish actions.
If other people want to know what the best way to live is, you would just tell them, avoid the crazy things, avoid the things that take you down.
Yes, avoid crazy at all costs. Crazy is way more common than you think. It's easy to slip into crazy. Just avoid it, avoid it, avoid it. Of course, of course, of course.
Charlie, who grew up during the Great Depression and experienced the loss of his son Teddy, recommends, as a second point, being strong in the toughest moments of life and persevering despite how challenging those moments may be. In an interesting part of the interview, Charlie mentions humor as one of the ways to move forward in the most difficult times. This is noteworthy because Charlie, an avid reader and a notable critic of television, shares what he has been watching lately, and it turns out to be quite surprising.
I think I heard that you've been binge watching Seinfeld. Is that right?
Well, I've finally gotten so I've seen so many of the reruns twice that I don't want to see them a third time. But I do like a bunch of self-centered people making the wrong decisions. It appeals to it is ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. These people go out of their way to get insane worries and so on. And they solve some of their problems with humor.
Yeah. It's a show about nothing, though.
Yes, but it's not really about nothing. It's about the humor of life being used to make life quite endurable. By kidding one another, which is what they're doing, because they're really kidding the audience, they are amusing us all.
Thirdly, Charlie offers advice on living a life that we can be proud of in our old age. Write the obituary you would like to be published upon your death and start living your life to fulfill everything in it. With this video, we bid farewell to one of the greatest investors in history, a true modern sage from whom you can learn a lot. In the description, I'll leave you with my 2 favorite videos of Charlie Munger, and I also recommend checking out the biography we made about him next.